The newest tank in World of Tanks is here, and it is a very interesting tank, and I've got two replays. One of them is one that I have genuinely not expected to have with a heavy tank, and that is this replay, and then the second one is just a good gameplay where we get to see the traditional features of a tank like this, the first replay. This one is something completely what you wouldn't expect for this vehicle. Now, straight away, what is the Lorraine AMX M4? Well, basically, what it is the AMX M4's turret. So you've got the tier 9 turret, essentially. So this is a tier 9 premium. You don't earn any extra credits, I don't believe. But essentially what this tank has is the tier 9 AMX turret on top of a Lorraine 50T hull, which means that you can go really quick, but the problem with going really quick is that you sacrifice the armor. So you have absolutely no armor on the hull of this vehicle, kind of making the whole point of having a heavy tank pointless, other than you can go hold down. But one thing that is good is that because you have the AMX or the Lorraine 50T hull, you can go up to 60 kilometers an hour. Now, in the current setup that we're using this vehicle with, I am running the engine boost to boost it up even further, allowing us to reach 66 kilometers an hour in this vehicle. So super speed with this thing. And if you were to maximize the speed, if you wanted to go one step further and you wanted to put fuel boost, this may just be the actual fastest heavy tank in the game. And I mean that with no uncertain terms. This genuinely would be one of the fastest heavies in World of Tanks console. But regardless of that, the whole point about this is that now you don't have to play this heavy tank like a typical heavy. You can play it in a variety of different ways. Ultimately, you want to be getting hulled down with it, so you can't see anything but the turret. That's essentially what it means. And if you can get a hold down where you can't showcase any of that hull armor, then you're going to be able to use the gun depression and the main armament, which is amazing, by the way. The gun of this thing is super good. Damage per minute is not insane, but it's still very good for a tier 9 heavy tank, and it allows you to kind of consistently deal damage. Now, you'll note straight away we haven't done a whole lot of damage, and we haven't done a whole lot of anything within this replay, but our first shell into the VZ actually hits, which is nice to see, and then the VZ is of course going for me again, and we lose 2/3 of my hit points, of course. Now we're on a bit of a sticky situation, since we're basically a one-shot now for some of the vehicles on the enemy team. If we come up against anything like a FV4005, it's not going to go very well. But what can you do when you can't really duke it out with the rest of the vehicles on the enemy team? Well, you could spot, and we haven't run this tank with the increased view range, so I haven't got coated optics or advanced optics. I haven't got any of the crew skills that are going to boost up to the maximum, the camo value, but maybe I will, having seen what this thing can do. And we were actually gifted this by Fat Little Bernie, so thank you very much to yourself for sending this one through on the account. But maybe in the future I'm going to run this with full camo and full speed, and then we'll play it like an aggressive medium with good turret. But I don't know, maybe not. I mean, to be honest with you, you've either got to full send it on the mobility front, or you've got to go with trying to create the best DPM and the most accurate tank that you can go with. Obviously, vertical stabilizer, super important. Advanced loader, super important. And both of them combined is really where you want to go. Then you might want to go with ventilation as well to boost it up, or alternatively go with that coated optics. Now, any of them would be absolutely fine, and of course allows you to be able to increase your spotting potential and get up close and personal, as well as be able to view the opponents. Because when playing this vehicle as we currently have it set up, where we're using the speed boost, advanced loader and vertical stabilizer, the view range is annoying, and although you are able to get forward fast, a lot of the time, because you're so fast comparatively to the rest of your heavy tanks and all of the mediums and stuff that are in the game, the problem is that when you then meet at the front at the beginning of the game, you don't have the view range that a lot of the tanks that have been able to get there have. So you end up meeting light tanks, you end up meeting super fast medium tanks that are able to then outspot you every day of the week, because you're huge. Remember, this is a big tank, it is not a small one. And that means most likely you're going to get spotted by anything you spot, even if you do have very good view range with this thing. But already we picked up 7,000 assistance damage, which, to be honest with you, is amazing in itself. I was not expecting to have got anywhere near the amount of assistance that we did within this replay, but hopefully we can continue that and move towards getting some extra assistance within this, but we'll have to wait and see. Now then, 8,000 combined, and obviously only doing 1,100 damage. You're not expecting to have done a great deal, but the whole point is that we can showcase something else that the tank can do, and of course move and mobility. And yes, it might be kind of boring from this point onwards, there's not a lot going on, so I guess we could skip forward to more of the interesting stuff. But let's jump forward. So we only manage to deal one shot of more damage, so there's nothing too spectacular there, and we get taken out, but we do get a decent chunk of assistance within the game. And of course, unfortunately, we still lose, and overall the victory screen coming in with a close defeat, so nothing absolutely outrageous there. Of course, the enemy T100 LT did a good game. I mean, picked up nearly 3,500 damage, 1,600 base experience, probably spotting for the enemy team, which is always good. But we, on the other hand, only managed to get 8,700 combined damage, and of course a patrol duty medal, because why wouldn't you want one of those? And we come second on the team to the T124, who managed to pick up 7,300 damage, which was only 3 damage off of what we got in assistance. So whether or not that was down to the fact that maybe we were basically spotting for the E4 and he was the only thing hitting, but I don't know. Either way, very good game. Let's jump into the next one. The next replay then is on Hellfire Pass, and this is a map that I've always enjoyed. Back when it was called Scorpion Pass, it was one of the more interesting ones. There is, of course, plenty of places to play with all variety of classes, which I always like to see. That's one thing that I have to say about console, is that the maps that they create are actually usually fairly well balanced, to the point where like there's something for everyone in terms of medium tanks have somewhere to go, heavy tanks have somewhere to go, tank destroyers, artillery, you get the drift. Basically everyone can go somewhere where it's beneficial to their tank, and that's kind of what I find to be the most balanced feature within console, at least in terms of like having an enjoyable gameplay experience. Now, am I saying that some of the tanks in the game are balanced? No, but at least we have some maps that are not so bad, although some maps are awful when they decide to change the spawns due to having a different kind of cap circles or a encounter mode or whatever it might be. You know, when that occurs, it's a pain in the backside, and unfortunately happens more often than not. Now then, the Lorraine. Now we're able to get forward pretty quickly, we're able to find out where the opponents are, and we're able to push forward. And remember, because you are a big old heavy boy, you can also ram. Now granted, it was a TVP VTU, and we're not expecting to you know, be able to do an infinite amount of damage because he was on low health, but we certainly got rid of him with just ramming, and so that was an extra bonus to this. But there is still plenty of tanks on the enemy team left to farm. We've picked up 1,400 damage so far, and the whole point about this one is that it showcases something else that you can do. I feel like this tank is a very well-rounded tank. I'm not going to say it's overpowered. In fact, I think it's quite far from being overpowered. I think that this is one of the most balanced premium tanks, or tier 9 vehicles, that Wargaming have actually introduced. It has good gun, good mobility, doesn't have armor, isn't like overpoweredly like DPM wise like disgusting. The alpha damage is kind of consistent with the tier. You know, there's nothing really too overpowered about this, and there's really nothing too awful or atrocious about this, and so it is the kind of best average tank I think I've seen in a long time, and that's really something nice and refreshing to see. Now, everyone might complain about the fact that, you know, there's loads of premiums that are overpowered, but at least we do get some of these every now and again. But would I say off that kind of logic whether you should go out and buy this tank? Absolutely not. I don't think that anyone should go out of their way to buy this tank. It is like £40 for the base version, and for me personally, it's just not worth it. Now, unfortunately, we do get hit by the Tiger II in the side. I was hoping to pen the M47 so we can progress the game, but of course, when we do get our first hit, or one of the first hits in the game, we of course get ammo racked, and that's something that this tank seems to get all of the time. I've played a few games in this thing, and a lot of the games I'm getting ammo racked, or at least been the ammo rack taken out, and it's just a pain, and it really does feel that way. And I guess that's because the ammo is maybe in the frontal area of the hull armor. I'm not entirely sure, or maybe it's just the fact that there is a ton of like space within the tank that has ammo rack kind of module in it. Maybe the ammo rack module in the tank is pretty big, I don't know, but it seems like it's all of the time, and it's a pain. It's much like a British tank, to be honest with you. It's that sort of ammo rack capability where, you know, you take one shell and you never know, are you just going to be ammo rack for the rest of the game? You're seeing us here pushing forward, trying to be a nuisance to this M47. He's getting pumped from behind by some auto-loading Czech tanks, I think. Maybe it's the Skoda or the TVP. Oh no, it's the Ragnarok. I knew it was a fast-firing autoloader. Of course, it's going to be one of the Czechs. But we've done 3,500 damage, but there's still a little bit more left to be done within this replay. But the whole point of today's video is not to showcase, you know, a 10k damage game, but also the different and variety of different ways you can play this tank, because that's always something that people forget within World of Tanks, is that you don't always have to play to get pure damage. You can play for assistance, you can play for tracking, you can play for however you want. You can just play for kills if you really wanted to, and even if you got rid of all of that, you could play for fun, which is the most important thing. And I wouldn't get too tied up with statistics or whatever you want to call them. I wouldn't bother kind of getting over invested in that. To be honest with you, my stats have never been better in terms of how I play, and I haven't cared about them in literally like 3 years. So, you know, if you sit down and you're constantly thinking about it, usually it doesn't make any difference anyway, so you might as well just play the game and enjoy it how you would like to enjoy it. Obviously, there's routes to be able to learn the game and get better at it, and those are primarily just from usually experience of watching people, as well as knowing the spots, playing in clans that actually know what they're doing, avoiding all of the kind of simple mistakes that everyone seems to do in the game, and of course learning from each other, and that will help out the vast majority of players from kind of having awful games to somewhere where you're enjoying the game and being able to be consistently within the top 5. I mean, me personally, I'm probably 90% of the time in the top 3 at least, and a lot of the time it's top 1 position, so it's just about playing a ton. I mean, for me personally, I've played 250 days, so you'd expect that I would be able to actually play this thing reasonably well. I'm not talking about the MX, by the way. I'm talking about any tank in the game. I mean, once you spent 250 days of actual in-game time on the game, then you would hope that you do well. So there's all of this talk about stats, blah blah blah, and at the end of the day, you know, the more experience you have in the game, the more often you're going to be able to do stuff much better. And yes, a lot of the people that you watch on YouTube have played the game a ton, and it's not like they've just come on after one weekend and somehow are the best player in the world. Of course, they have to put the work in, so take it with a pinch of salt. And of course, if you're seeing the damage results I'm doing in this tank, then you can probably compare that to some of the other tier 9s I've done videos on, and you can see that this one is fairly low in the damage number. Now granted, I try and ram the Sturmtiger because I'm like, we'll go for it, see how much damage we dealt, and unfortunately we actually got full health by the Sturmtiger by ramming it, so I'm surprised we didn't manage to deal more damage. But of course it was basically an even trade. I don't have any of the ramming perks, I don't have any of the ramming equipment, so I'm not surprised we took a decent chunk, but I wanted to see how heavy and how good this thing can be at ramming, so highly recommend ramming medium and light tanks if you get the choice, but ultimately you should always not ram something if you think that you can take it out without taking more damage from just dealing the damage by using your gun. But other than that, that is the Lorraine AMX M4, a brilliant tank, and thank you Fat Little Bernie for gifting it to me in the game. Really did enjoy making this one, and a very, very balanced tank. Hopefully you guys have some questions, and if you do, leave them in the comment section down below, and if you did enjoy this video, please do like it, as it will help it spread to more people, and I hope you'll join me in the next video coming soon. Goodbye.